Moving on to this work by Honoré Daumier. Daumier made this work called The Third Class Carriage, and once again, we're seeing peasants. We're seeing this working class. This is the part of society that most people wanted to ignore. And while we do see sweetness here in the young mother's face, here we see the next generation. So this is the baby's grandma, this lady's mom, and here we have maybe her younger brother. So we have these three generations, and while this mom still looks hopeful and excited about her baby, the grandma, her face really tells us that she has had a hard life. It's been a difficult life. There's no husband here, there's no grandpa, so we get the sense that these women are largely on their own. There's no husband for her here. They're trying to make their way as best they can in the world. Again, you could see how their clothing is tattered. It doesn't look crisp or fresh or new. They are facing the other direction. All of the richer, more high-class individuals are on the other part of the cabin. This is like a train that would be taking them somewhere. So the idea is that these people are ignored by society. Society has literally turned their back on them. And you see that in the way the artist has arranged the figures. This one also has that sort of primitive quality. Instead of using the palette knife the way Courbet did, you could see that Daumier's painting is almost like a sketch. Look at how this is barely shaded. It's just really a line drawing. And this is considered pretty rough by the Academy, the people that are judging what is considered good art. Okay, so moving on. This is a recap of what we just talked about with Daumier. And we're going to move on to another this isn't a painting, another work by Daumier. This one is Rue Transménant, and this is a French word, obviously. Rue means street in French, and so what he's saying here is this is a real event that happened on this street on this date, 1834. This is a lithograph. A lithograph is a printing process. It's a planiographic process, which means that instead of carving into something like you would in an intaglio print, or having the raised up area print like you would in a woodcut or in a relief print, planiographic means that it is flat. Your print is created flat on a surface. And how artists do this, they take a limestone, they draw on it with a waxy crayon called a touche. And this crayon, it is super easy to use. It's just like an artist drawing on a sheet of paper. The print works because it's based on the idea that water and oil don't mix. So when the ink is smeared over the stone, it adheres to the crayon marks, but not to the stone. And then it's pressed under pressure onto paper. This lithograph, it actually allows for artists to create works really quickly because it's almost just like drawing in a sketch. And so these were used very often for newspapers. And in fact, Daumier did work for a newspaper. What you're looking at here is a pretty disturbing scene. He would have been called out in the middle of the night to quickly sketch this scene. His lithograph would have then been turned over to the newspaper company so it could go out the next day in the press. On this night, April 15th, the police were called out because they heard sniper shots. The sniper shots actually killed one of the police officers. And the remaining officers were angry, and they had heard a report that the shots came from this building. So they went into the building and they killed absolutely everybody inside the building. Now, this is horrible that they lost one of the police officers, but this reaction was quite an overreaction. And so you can imagine the horror that people would have experienced when they read about this story in the paper the next day. So you see the father here. He's in his nightgown. He's even got a nightcap on. The body of his child is crushed under him. This is a pile of her blood. This is his wife in the background. And this is his elderly father here, also dead. This is, again, realism. They're not it's the gritty reality of these horrible scenes. They're not making this seem heroic or patriotic. It's pretty brutal in its depiction. So this is a summary of what we just talked about with Daumier's lithograph. Okay, we're going to move on to modernism and Edouard Manet, and I'm going to come back and talk about that in our next session.